We're getting ready for UFC 107, and I was going to say familiar face, but for a lot of people, they're like, who? Paul Buentello.
Exactly.
But of course, old UFC days, and you're a veteran fighter, so I'm sure you're fired up to be back.
Yeah, I'm definitely fired up to be back. It's been a long time. It's almost been 50 shows. 50 shows since I've been fighting the UFC. I left in 05 and just, the 06, I think it was. The UFC 57 was my last fight. So it's been a long road, and I guess, I'm back 50 shows later.
And I know you've been pretty vocal. I've seen you up on like the UG, and I think you went on a rant. Maybe it was like last year. You're like, I can't get fights. I mean, this is ridiculous. There were a lot of bad circumstances.
Well, it's just dealing with other promotions that don't put enough fights together, and they just got smaller cards. They only throw 1 or 2 shows a year. That's hard to get on those cards, and yeah, and that's another reason that brought me back to the UFC was the longevity of the sport with UFC, and plus the security that I have for fighting. And I'm in the business for fighting, and they're in the business of putting on fights, so that's a good company to be with.
And the original time when you parted ways with UFC, it seems like so not their philosophy now. You lost a weird fight against Arlovsky. You come in, you get caught, you fall on his back. It was bizarre. But it wasn't like you weren't an action fighter. It wasn't like the heavyweight division had a lot of depth either. So going back then, what happened? What did they tell you? Or was it just kind of this abrupt deal?
It was my management at the time was a good time to just go and venture out and, try to make some money. Yeah. And, it was a business move on my management part. And I could say when you do a business move like that, you just have to deal with it. I can look back and say, oh, it was a good move or a bad move. But, now that I'm back, I'm not even worried about that. You got to enjoy the now instead of worrying about the past.
The last 2 years have been a little nutty. That's when you kind of went on your rant. I mean, you had I was looking back at the record. I'm like, he fought Overeem, and then that was it for basically a couple of fights since then. And I was at the fight against Baby Fedor. So what have you been doing the last couple of years? I'll ask, not even as a fighter, but as a man, how are you surviving money-wise?
Exactly. And that's the hard part is that, I fought 2 times in 2 years, and that's just really rough to do. But thanks for sponsors, Dynapep.com, also Progenics, just paying me monthly stuff and keeping me aboard. And this last 6 months, this last year, after my the Affliction 3 or Election 2, got canceled, August 15th, I was already in shape, getting ready to fight Kirill. No, not Kirill. It was
I'm blanking on who you were fighting too.
Ivo, Gilbert Ivo.
That's right,
the whole show got canceled, so I was clearly out. 3 months of training, time stopped. So I went back home. UFC was absorbing contracts. Honestly, I didn't think the UFC would give me a call to absorb my contract from Affliction. They called. They wanted me back in the UFC, and I'm like, I'm going to take that jump. I'm going to jump over back to the UFC. And I was in shape, so I went back home, hired another personal trainer, stayed in shape, and here I am.
All right, now what's that? It sounds like what it's created is a little rift with you and AKA, which maybe you can explain it. I don't really understand it. If the best thing for you is to go to UFC. They have fighters in UFC and Strikeforce. I know you kind of turned down Strikeforce, so why would Bob Cook be mad at you right now?
He's mad. I moved with a different management company, a company that this whole time I've been treating it as just fun and games, having fun, fighting, but it's a business. It's a business, and you got to have the right people behind you. And Crazy Bob's been my friend for a long time, and he still is. Still is my friend. It's just that the way I did it, the way I moved over to a new management without telling Crazy Bob is the worst part. And he's pretty upset that the way I did it. And I just had to make a move for myself in a business sense with another management that's just gonna promote me a little more and do a little extra stuff. Crazy Bob has a lot of stuff on his plate. He's a busy man, and I just felt I just needed something else, and I can separate my trainers and management. Bob was my trainer and management, and I think that was just a cause of influence. Just too much stress there. I couldn't call Bob and argue and yell at him and tell him this is what I want, this is what I need. Bob's my trainer. He knows who I am, and I just need somebody outside looking in. And I think the way I made the move was the wrong way I did it. Okay. But I think Bob will eventually get over it. We'll see.
Right. So you sound open to going back there because this was a pain in the ass for this one, right? You were driving all over the place. It's in San Jose, and then you were going to Sacramento, and for people outside of California, that's close. It's not close.
It's a 3-hour drive, and it was rough because with AKA, that's my home. I've been there for 8 years. Going on 8 years. Pretty much the last of the original AK team. Me, Josh Thompson, Bobby Southworth, Mike Swick are the last 4 that are actually there. And Josh Thompson, he's an advocate trying to get me back in the UFC. Bobby Southworth, same thing. My teammates are pushing me, but Bob is the one holding that decision. But I had to, with AK, I would go at noontime. AK, get my sparring and get my hard stuff. Boom, go to the personal trainer, and then bam, go to little Dave Velasquez at NorCal. And now that AK's not letting me come over there, I had to cram everything into 4 hours. I had to cram 2 to 3 sessions into 4 hours. And it was just rough. It was a really rough training, and mentally too, because knowing that the outcome is that Crazy Bob's not going to be in my corner, that was the really hard part.
Yeah. Well, looking at the positives, like you said, look at the now.
Yep.
The heavyweight division, it really looks like they're trying to make a push here. Well, did you get a chance to watch a reality show? And what were you thinking as a guy who is a pretty accomplished striker, a volume striker, a big dude, a legit heavyweight, when you watched some of the guys who were trying to make their way in, when you're ready to be at that level?
Yeah. People look at that show and they see the heavyweights and they see how they got tired and gassed out, but they don't know that 3 weeks before that, they were stuck in a hotel. And 2 days after they got out of the hotel, they had to jump in there and start fighting. So they didn't really have enough time. I think they were fighting every 3 days. So these guys couldn't really get in shape to fight. Now that these guys made the show, you're going to see like McSweeney, you're going to see, Kimball's going to change a little bit. Roy Nelson, he's just a stud. He's just been in the game for a long time, so he knew how to fight, and he knew how to do the fights to get through the whole, he won the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the thing, is people don't realize that these guys don't have 8 weeks to train. They had a couple of days fight, couple of days fight, couple of days fight, and it's rough, but it's a good division. There's some big guys in there that can know how to sling, and they don't care about throwing punches.
There's more athletes coming, guys who are 6'4" and 240. So when you look at a guy like Roy, do you have like a partnership with him as a guy who isn't the ripped, muscular guy, the bad body guy that sometimes people don't want to promote?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Me and Roy Nelson probably fit the same category. I look at him, he looks at me, and people look at us like, oh, those guys are not fighters. But it's true. We don't have that build, and we just have the heart. And Roy Nelson was born a fighter. I was born a fighter. We're both league-like. He just has a little bigger belly. I'm just a little bit taller. I think if we're the same height, I think we'll have the same belly. But, that's just the thing, is how this sport, people can look at the book and not judge, look at it and go, oh, that guy can't fight. But it's not true. It's proven. Roy Nelson is a good proof. He won the whole title. He won the whole series.
Well, I can tell people, if you miss the Baby Fedor fight, anyone who thinks you're slow, lumbering heavyweight, you pepper the crap out of him. Basically, beat him up with jabs. That's how good the striking was.
Yeah, don't take the word off of Tommy Rios from Sherdog. Says I have no jab. My jab is the key. So it's funny how some of the critics can just not watch that fight. And the thing is, too, UFC 57. That's probably another best display of what I can do, what I'm accomplished with. And then Kirill, that just shows that hiring a personal trainer, being more involved in my training, and just taking the time to put the hours in shows on Kirill. And, I'm excited about the UFC. There's no pressure. The only pressure is just waiting.
Struve's interesting. Young guy, just turned 22, I think, 21 and a half. He's 6'11". You've called him a striker. And my thought was, hey, basically he has to get it to the ground to win. So why do you think he's a striker? Well,
if you watch some of his fights, he doesn't stand like a grappler. He doesn't go for takedowns and stuff. He'd rather stand, but his game is the ground. It's just the way he stands. And, I just ran into him just a few minutes ago, and, oh, my God, he's tall. He's really tall. But and I can see that he's just a humble guy. This is just a sport. Guys, fighters are not just pricks all the time. It really is a sport. And, it was cool to, say hi, and he shook his hand and everything, but he's just really tall. But I count him as a striker. I've seen, you got to watch his videos. He strikes pretty clean, but he's winning the fights on the ground. That's the one thing, So
what's the challenge going against a guy who's 6'11"? There can be negatives trying to get to him, but he also has to come down to you, and Dos Santos found a way to get him.
Yeah, probably the big negative, if we did go to the ground, try to get back up right away. Don't play his game, because he's way too long to be playing his game. And just go out there and do what I do.
Good deal, man. We're looking forward to an exciting fight. Good luck in this. I hope you're around for a while.
No problem. I will. And enjoy. Don't blink. It's going to be a good fight.